the ultimate experience. So sit tight, drop a comment. Please drop a comment, actually. That's how we know that you're here. We're going to be taking all your questions today. And before we get started, let's hear from today's wonderful sponsors. Hi, my name is Dr. Funkenstein. You know, sales professionals and doctors have more in common than you'd think. For one, they both need the right tools to get the job done. That's why I prescribe all my patients TLDV. TLDV is the AI meetings assistant. It works with all the programs that your team uses, like Microsoft Teams, Google Meets, and Zoom, compiling AI summaries to keep you up to date on what's really important. It even updates with Salesforce, HubSpot, and other CRMs. Try it today at tldv.io, and I promise you'll hit your quota immediately. Dr. Funkenstein is not a doctor, nor has he ever claimed to be a doctor. Statements made by Dr. Funkenstein are protected by the First Amendment of the United States and do not reflect the opinions of tldv.io or Chris Bogue Communications, LLC. Guarantees made by Dr. Funkenstein are purely suggestive and should not be taken as medical advice under any circumstances. Similarities between medical professionals and sales professionals may have been exaggerated for dramatic effect. Quota attainment claims are based on incomplete data and subject to change as of the end of this sentence. Talk to your sales manager to learn if an AI assistant is right for you, or just go to tldv.io and do whatever you want, because you're an adult. Chris Sells His Soul is filmed in front of a live streaming audience, so don't forget to comment throughout the show. The show's about to get started, so grab yourself 2 hearty buckets of popcorn and get ready for a conversation about how to monetize your creative skills. Now it's time for a message from today's sponsor. Look, I'm a busy dad, so when a salesperson reaches out pitching me, I just say no thanks, explode into hysterical abusive rage, and get back to my day. But then I learned about Pitchfire. They have a much better way. Instead of screaming and getting angry, I actually get paid to respond to salespeople. Thanks, Pitchfire. Live from Chicago, it's Chris Sells His Soul. I'm your host, Chris Bogue, and this is my show where I have conversations with cool people who will help you work more creatively. Today, my guest is Laura Erdem. Laura, say hello and let my audience know where they can find you.
Of course, Chris. It's fantastic to be here. So if anybody wants to comment where they're watching from, would be nice, because I'm watching and you're watching me from Copenhagen. So I'm in Denmark right now and it's 7 p.m. I am Laura Erdem and I'm a sales manager at Dream Data. I have been at Dream Data for almost 4 years. That's a startup. That's like, I'm a dinosaur. I've been in sales at a startup, at the same startup for 4 years, including COVID. So it's forever. And it has been a lot of fun because, well, I had to start selling the product that nobody really wanted to buy. And now a lot of people want to buy it. That's who I am.
Excellent. Yes. Everybody who's watching this, please go connect with Laura on LinkedIn. You see that QR code up in the top left corner of the screen. Take out your phone, switch it to camera mode. Go ahead, line it up. Connect with Laura. And some of you might be wondering who I am. So my name is Chris Bogue. This is my show. I coach people to make mercifully short video content. It drives revenue. Sometimes that video content is video prospecting for sales. Sometimes it's creative content for social media like LinkedIn or TikTok. But you can find me on LinkedIn. Go ahead, ring my bell. I do new updates all the time. New content all the time, and oftentimes that content is collaborative. So if anybody was watching my feed this week, you saw I did a little sketch with Laura here. We had some fun because today we're going to be talking about how to create, that's the wrong button. We're going to be talking about how to create an unforgettable experience. So part of the reason why I discovered Laura in the first place is she and I both make a lot of video content on LinkedIn. And I noticed she was always doing this interesting thing where she was running with other people, and she was taking videos of it. And she's laughing because I'm sure, Laura, I'm sure you are a wonderful person with a variety of interests and quirks about your personality and your career. When you first started, that was all I knew about you. I would just see you running all the time. Why did you start doing that? How did you start doing that? When did it occur to you to start not only running at networking events with other people, but to start filming that and putting that on the internet?
Yep, there's a lot to unpack on this one. And no, nobody has ever asked that actually. So yeah, running itself, it came out as a very unplanned thing. So I started at Dream Data when we had maybe 10K revenue coming in. And back then, like you think, oh, people have to go to events and we have to do things and so on. So we can afford tickets to go to events, but we're not going to do a booth and all that kind of expensive stuff. So what can we do in order to gather people, but also make content about it? Actually, we didn't think about doing content about it to start with. So
no one ever does.
No, that came later. So I run, and no matter what, when the first event was SaaStr, if I'm going to San Francisco, I'm going to run no matter what, because I take my shoes with me, I run, that's what I do. And actually coming back from SaaStr that time, I had to go to a half marathon right after I landed, the day after. That was tough. Anyway, but let's do a run. So we created a LinkedIn event. People come join the run together with Laura. We're going to run. And people liked it. We bought some energy bars, some water, and they came and they had some fun. We took pictures and then we posted it, and everybody started saying, oh, so you do the runs? Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to Inbound in Boston. Let's run. Good. Now we're going somewhere else. Let's run. There was one time we went to Berlin. I think it was January, very snowy, and said, let's do a run. That's what we do. It's cheap. Everybody joins. We created an event. Nobody showed up. Nobody. None. That was the first time. Nobody showed up. But we did the content. And that means that we gathered the people for something that is, first of all, free for us, fun for everybody, fun, not free, for everybody else. And then we start to create content out of it. Even if nobody shows up, then people know and join their brain cells that, oh, this is Laura, this is Dream Data, and they run. And it's something that they do. So it's kind of creating that type of experience.
All right. You have stumbled upon a very interesting topic that I want to talk to you about, which is how much of content is a waste of time?
It depends on who you ask, actually. If you never try to create content on LinkedIn, and especially if you're in sales, would say, oh, waste of time. You better go do some cold calling. Better go do some writing emails or something. So it really, the beginning of it, you might think is the waste of time because nobody likes it, but it's something you have to do. And then if you enjoy it, it's your creative space. So what I did with you, Chris, well, for me, it's just this fame of people who's watching us right now and are enjoying this conversation. But it was not a waste of time because it gave me so much of positive energy. I came back home, I had another meeting, I had amazing energy. And that is also uncountable as well. So it depends on how you set yourself to the content. It's hard to start, but when you do, it's so much fun.
Let me just share. I'm going to just play the video. It's less than a minute long. So I'm going to play the video for the audience if anybody hasn't seen it, because then we can talk a little bit about what it was like making it together. And what I'm trying to get at with these questions here is that if anybody watches my content, you can tell that I put a lot of work into it. And I don't anticipate that most of my audience is going to watch the content. Part of what I'm doing is I'm trying to make it look interesting, even if you don't watch the whole thing, even if you only get 5 to 10 seconds. I want it to feel like it's completely different from anything else you're going to see on LinkedIn. So this was Laura and we did a comedy sketch earlier this week, and this is what it looked like.
Laura Erdem, why are we running at 6 in the morning?
Hi, Chris. I thought it would be nice to do some professional networking together. That is not just drinking at some bar.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. Are you hearing feedback on your end too?
No, it's all good. I can hear it perfectly.
Okay. Well, here we go then.
Something wrong with that? Something wrong with that?
It never hurts to try something different, I guess.
100%. 100%.
Chris?
Chris?
Brothers and sisters, let us not cry
tears of sadness for Chris,
but rather tears
of joy.
For we all got a ton of engagement out of
this.
How to create an unforgettable experience with Laura Erdem and Chris Bogue. This Thursday at 12 p.m. Central. Sponsored by TLDV and Pitch. All right, so that was our little advertisement that we did there. So Maya said there was feedback in there. Well, looks like I'm going to be having an angry call with Restream after this. But yeah, the idea here was we did a little promotion, and I guess I'm doing a couple things here. So you are a runner. Running is part of who you are. Even if you're not working, you're planning on going on marathons and stuff. That's how I am with sketch comedy. I did it for so long. It was such a part of who I was here in Chicago that when I started my own business, it just seemed obvious because I'm like, okay, it's very easy for me to write sketches, and I don't really see anybody else doing that on LinkedIn, and I just kind of started doing it with guests. And I'm kind of surprised so many of them go along with it. Although in full disclosure, I have had experiences where I wrote a sketch for a guest, filmed my part, am all ready to do it. And then at the last minute, they tell me, I got too nervous. I'm sorry, I couldn't do it.
Really?
Yeah. So what were your thoughts when I was like, hey, let's do a comedy sketch together?
I was like, why nobody did it before? It's like, for me, it was so much fun. Well, recently I am very, very busy at work as well. Like really focused, have to make sure that I prove my time right and all that kind of stuff. But when you reached out to say, oh my God, this is a break. It's going to be fun. And all that communication. So we haven't met. We didn't do this communication at all. We didn't call each other. We didn't meet anything to plan this. It was all in messages. Just like, Chris, what do you like? What do you hate? Blah, blah, blah. Like, what could that be? And then Chris, got an idea. What if we do this? And it's like, yes, fine. I'm going to film it when I'm on my way back from work. Like, all right, cool. I think it was just a breath of fresh air. And plus the thing that was the best for me, that's the toughest part for me for creating content, is editing it. Because to create it is a lot of fun, and you can redo and create a lot of fun, and a lot of good ideas are still living in your brain. And you're thinking, it will take me like 2 hours on the sofa to cap cut it or something. and that was the cool part, because you did it all. Thank you for the experience, Chris.
Yeah, well, this is actually something that I think is like worth knowing for anybody who's watching this at home, is like, if you are going to ask somebody to do something with you, make sure it is very easy for them to understand what they're going to have to do. If you take a look at that video that I did, there's like 30 different jokes packed into that little 45 seconds, but Laura has 3 lines. That's all you have. And I'm like, I sent it to you. It's like, hey, you're going to hold the camera, vertically. All I need you to say are these 3 lines, and then I will do the rest after that. Usually that's pretty, like, people will go along with that. If I'm just like, here, I wrote your lines. I'll even put a little part in the script where I'm like, you can improvise here. You can say whatever you want. And that was another trick I learned at Chicago's Second City when I was doing sketch comedy shows. A director taught me that no matter who's in the cast, you always write a little part in the script that the performer can own. Where they can come in and say whatever they want. I would always have these moments in the show. Somebody would need to barge through a door and they would shout, holy moly or something. And I would put in the notes there being like, hey, literally, I don't care what you say here. As long as you open the door and you're surprised and angry, you can say whatever you want, And then it creates this fun little mini game of then they're going to come out and say different weird stuff every time. And again, I'm always trying to get in this idea of like, how do you create a one of a kind moment? How do you create, and like in my case, because again, I'm trying to show people that one, video is easier to do than you think. Two, you can do a lot more with a short video than you think. And three, you got to go out there and give the performance that only you can give.
Mhm.
And that's why when I bring a guest on here, I don't have the idea. I'm just like, Laura, come on the show. I know you do running. Then we start talking about running. And I'm like, why do you do the running? You're like, oh, it's nice to have something that isn't just drinking. And then I was like, oh, I got it. And I just banged out the sketch, and it was because it was a collaborative process. We found that moment together. And then I was like, hey, all I need you to do is give these 3 lines and send it to me. And then, now it's like, okay, now we've got a comedy sketch. The comedy sketch is promoting the live episode. Maybe if they don't see the live episode, they'll see the comedy sketch. Or maybe they're not going to see that video until a year and a half from now when I repurpose it. A lot of the time I'm taking these little bits of comedy sketches from my one of my teasers, and I'll repurpose it 6, 8, 12, 16 months down the line.
That's funny enough. That's where I saw your sketch with Jen Allen. I haven't seen the live thing. I have not seen it before. It was when you repurposed it. I said, oh my God, that was funny.
Thank you. I work so hard for that. And I guess going back to this question that we were talking about, is it a waste of time? The honest answer is yes. Sometimes you plan a running networking event at a B2B convention and it doesn't work. Sometimes I spend all this time making a wonderful multi-character comedy sketch and nobody watches it and nobody cares, but sometimes it blows up. Sometimes that allows people to experience my content who never would have otherwise seen me, and it gets them in. So, to me, it's like I have to be putting new shows out there all the time, doing new collaborations all the time, not because 100% of them are going to succeed, but because one of them is going to succeed, and that's what I tell the sponsors too, who get involved with the show. I say, hey, I can't guarantee you every single video is going to go viral, but sometimes they do go viral, sometimes they do make a big splash. And the only way you're going to make sure you take advantage of that is if you are in a long-term commitment and you're doing all the shows for a series of months. Then if one of them hits it off, you're sure to be included in that,
But
so
still, it's still not a waste of time. I like your honesty, Chris, but I don't think it's a waste of time, because if you don't start and waste that time, you wouldn't get to that viral post. You wouldn't.
Yeah. So how did you figure this out then? So you and I were started in very different situations where it was like you were the first sales rep at your company, right? Starting sales rep. And stop me if I'm wrong, because I could be getting your whole story wrong. But it seemed like you were doing stuff on LinkedIn and you somehow figured out how to route some of that activity into your pipeline, and then your bosses were presumably happy with it because you're getting new opportunities in that were from a route other than what they had planned for you. I have seen a lot of creators in the opposite boat. Like you said, they try to do something on LinkedIn, it doesn't work. All of a sudden, their company has a bad month in revenue. The first thing they do is they say, knock off all this content bullshit. What are you trying to be, an influencer? Knock it off. Stop putting this stuff out there on LinkedIn unless you're posting like stuff direct from the company. And like for me, I had to I quit my job and I started my own thing because I realized that video was very powerful and that I had skills at it, and that my team just didn't have processes to support that, and they didn't understand how to do it well. And I was not going to be able to work it into their process, No. So I went and did my own thing. So did you see returns immediately? Were you sharing what you were doing immediately? How did you start? How did you cross that chasm from putting stuff out there on LinkedIn to this is actually making me money and bringing me in
Yeah.
paid clients?
It was a big chasm because before Dream Data, I worked at Gartner. So yes, we had Eloqua, and you pick up a link and you reshare it. That's what content was for me.
Mhm.
And then I joined Dream Data, and yeah, I did announce it, and then we did like small posts and so on. But it's a small company, so you try stuff. And I did a post about, I think, celebrating the first client that closed and stuff like that, and how attribution looks like. And then Chris Walker, everybody knows, another big Chris on LinkedIn, he commented.
Friend of the show.
Yeah, exactly. And he commented something pretty negative. It's like, oh, attribution doesn't work, in the lines of what he does all the time. And I was like, Stefan, the CMO, do I delete this? Because we're small and he's like saying negative stuff about what we do. It's like, no. We go for lunch, we come back, and we see what happens. We come back. So after that post and just Chris's comment, that whole thing blew up. First, the best day of the website visitors for Dream Data overall. And then the best week for marketing qualified leads for us to come into Dream Data. So then the CMO thinks is like, this is kind of cheap marketing. Let's do more of this. And that's how we started posting in general. Video was not the start. I don't even know. That could be interesting to go back and see what was the first video we did. But we started doing video. I think even one of the first times when I was like really feeling good about doing video was when I was at SaaStr. I was all alone. And I was thinking, well, what do the influencers do? They just walk and talk. And it's like, oh, so how this is conference and look at that. And people liked it. Then we started doing product videos with the circle on the side and showing product and so on. And it works because people started remembering my face. And even in those, how have you heard us forums and so on, they write, oh, Laura's content. Nice. So, okay, thank you. It works. Plus, luckily enough, we're selling to marketers who want as cheap as possible advertisement. And they think, oh, those employees in sales, they could be doing a little more to help marketing to lower the lift. And plus at Dream Data, we can attribute a part of it too. So that helps because we can see the revenue dots connecting together. But that's how it worked out. And then videos just evolved because it was fun. I ride my bike to work. It's like, what if I film? It's like... And then what if people say, oh, you don't have a helmet? Oh, you looked at the camera too much. It's like, good, you're watching.
Give me your hatred. Yeah, that's interesting too. And it's funny because like how you point out, and I tell the people all this time, I'm like, look, I wish people would Google things, but they don't. I kill myself putting so much wonderful, brilliant content out there that people could Google. Nobody ever Googles me, right? So if you're trying to go out there and video. Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, if you go out there and you make a video about marketing, people aren't like, hang on a second, I'm going to Google her career to see if she's qualified to speak. You know what they do? They listen for 5 seconds and they're like, oh, I think that's smart. And then they move on. So it's like, we're kind of naturally inclined to believe friendly faces that speak to us with goodwill. So, take advantage of it. Why not? Speaking of taking advantage of people buying from us because of the goodwill we have for them, you want to do Gimme Gimme?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So this is the part of the show that my guests and I always do, so we can correct some misinformation here on LinkedIn. So, this show, we're all about factual accuracy. And there is a nasty little rumor going around on LinkedIn saying that the true point of LinkedIn is to be selfless, to make friends, and to charitably give away value and ask for nothing in return. Yeah. But here on this show, we know the real reason LinkedIn exists, right? It's to make money. It is the only social network that was designed exclusively so you could put your resume out there, so you could get higher paying jobs, higher paying clients, better employees. So Every episode, I like to pop into character, and my guest and I like to ask my audience for exactly what it is we want from them. So, Laura, are you ready to do Gimme Gimme?
I am ready.
Here we go. Hello! Welcome to another episode of Gimme Gimme, part of the show where I ask you for money. Laura Erdem, my audience is here. They have money. Ask them for whatever it is you want.
Oh my God. Okay, so can you go to your marketers and tell them about Dream Data? They don't buy if they don't Google, they don't look at anything, they don't book demos. Please go over to your marketer and tell about Dream Data. Then they'll go in and then they'll fill out the form. How have you heard about us from? You've heard it from here. Go speak to your marketer.
Yeah, and first go to Laura's LinkedIn page, connect with her, because I guarantee you none of you at home know anything about attribution, all right? I have all sorts of people coming to me from all over the place because they love my content. I cannot find them. It is harder than you would think. Most of the touch points that your team is focusing on are not the right touch points, all right? You have no idea how people are discovering you. Laura is here to change that.
Exactly. It's not direct. I can tell you that. Your marketers are working. Go tell them that you've heard how to do this. Now you'll know.
Go there, connect with Laura, use the QR code, go connect with Laura Erdem. Make sure you drop her name when you set the demo because we know that's very important.
It is. Or go Google. Nobody does. You can Google.
You can Google it. You have our permission to Google it. I'm not going to yell at you any more than I would on any other given day of the week. All right, so go check out Laura. Check out Dream Data. And hey, while you're at it, why don't you check out our wonderful sponsors today, too? All right? Updating your CRM, all right, going through your call notes, that's basically a full-time job, all right? And your sales reps do not have time to do it. They barely have any time to sell. That's why you got to check out TLDV, all right? TLDV is the AI meeting assistant. It works with every single program that your team works with. Google Meets, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, all those programs. It compiles AI summaries using all the programs you use and syncs automatically with CRMs like Salesforce and HubSpot. I put the wrong thing up. Oh, that's right. I've got Laura's thing up here because I'm very supportive about her, but I'm also supportive about our sponsors too. So I'm going to jump back here for a moment. TLDV, the AI meetings assistant. You can try it for free. Go to tldv.io or scan this QR code up here. Trust me, transcriptions are very important. I would not be able to do sales without them. Make sure you are keeping track of your calls. Make sure your team is sticking to your processes. And while you're at it, why don't you get paid too by our other sponsor? Because today is also brought to you by Pitchfire. All right, I see everybody whining about how they get pitched nonstop. Stop crying about it and start making money. Go to pitchfire.com, scan the QR code, and start actually getting paid to respond to salespeople. You make more money, they get feedback on what they need to do. It's win-win-win, and the show gets paid. So go ahead, scan the QR code. Laura, anything else from the audience before we go to commercial and start second half of the show?
We're good. Very
Excellent.
good.
All right. Well, this has been Gimme Gimme. Iggy, roll the tape.
Hello?
Is this Mr. Sherber?
It sure is. What can I help you with, brother?
Hello. You were not expecting this call. Do you have 17 seconds to
Hang
learn
on a
about
second.
Mercifully Short?
Is this a cold call?
I don't know.
You. Never call this number again.
Oh no! Another unsuccessful cold call. You probably don't have time to fuck off.
I got a quota to hit.
Are you spending hours every week cold calling and cold emailing but not seeing results?
There's gotta be a better way.
Introducing the complete guide to selling on video. Whether you're new to sales or a President's Club member, this fast and fun course will teach you to efficiently create short, customized videos that get results. The complete guide to selling on video is not sold in stores. Visit chrisbogue.io and use promo code GIMMEGIMME to take $50 off while supplies last. Don't delay. Get noticed today.
And we're back. I am here with Laura Erdem. We are talking about how to create experience that'll get you more sales, experiences that will grow your audience, collaborations that are going to help move your career along. My dog is barking very loud. Biscuit, shh. She's my co-star. So, Laura, let's talk a little bit. So, probably what's happening here is what happens whenever I bring on a guest like you, somebody who is talented, somebody who has a personal brand, somebody who is good at sales. People see what we're doing and they're like, "Oh, that's all well and good for you. You already have an audience. How do I get started?" So, let's break these down one by one. So, let's talk about having experiences with other creators and then creating experiences with potential buyers, right? So let's start with asking for collaborations from creators. So how often do you work and do things with other creators?
I'd like to do it more than I actually do. I do speak with them on LinkedIn very often, check in and so on, but collaborations themselves, it's not too often. Mostly when we are at events, then we would exchange video content together. So if we're at Faster, we're filming something.
I'm sorry, somebody's at the door. 1 second.
Go ahead.
Biscuit. Shh.
Oh, it's all right. Yeah, so for everybody watching, so when I'm at events to collaborate with creators, we would exchange videos. So I would film something. I would already, before going to an event, I would have an idea what I want to film. So we would film it together, and that person would be together on a video. And most often when I am at those events, I would also extend the collaboration to prospects as well. So because that is also that fun experience too. So if I was doing an experience with a creator, why should it be so much different than what I'm doing with a prospect as well? That was a very similar thing that I did in New York. So when we went to New York for a conference, I think it was April or something, and thinking, okay, so what? I need to book meetings. It's like, I cannot just go to the conference. I'm in sales. I gotta book meetings. And I couldn't. So then I rented a petty bike for 2 days to drive us around in Central Park, and I made a schedule to meet people. So basically I reached out to people, would you be up for biking and filming with me? Everybody have seen me recklessly biking and filming myself. They were thinking that they're going to do that same thing, and they said, okay. But we were just sitting in a petty bike and having an interview together. And that's where I was speaking both with Morgan J. Ingram and people that you know, and with prospects. Actually, there were clients as well. And from there, then I created content for LinkedIn as well. And it extends as an experience for everybody. Because when you do it with creators, well, you exchange your audiences. They will like it. They will probably reshare it. They will probably share it by themselves. When you do it with prospects, they enjoy the experience. Likely, you're going to ask questions that are relevant for you to be able to sell to them later, but they will have that experience. They would have seen the content and they had a possibility to speak about their company too. And when you do it with clients, well, they're going to just love you because it's not just a drinking dinner or something that you did with them, and it could be a run.
Yeah, well, here, Todd brings up an interesting point. So Todd says, when you are mobile, I'm assuming you're using your phone.
Yeah.
And again, I coach video. So people don't realize sometimes, this is one of the things that no matter how advanced I get, I sometimes have to go back to the basics and remember. I'll meet somebody who's like, oh, I've got a new-ish MacBook. You know, I got a 2019 refurbished MacBook, and I'll use the webcam on that. And I'm like, actually, the webcam in that is not as good as the webcam in an iPhone 7.
Yep.
You know, your phone, even if you have a very old phone, like an iPhone 7 or an iPhone 8, has stunning video quality. You know, that is a better camera than, you know, the vast majority of what you're doing there. Just in general, if you have your phone on you, it's going to look it's just going to look clear when you do it. Yeah. For me, I've decided, so when I do things in person, and like it's actually interesting that you bring up like interviewing other guests. I have found that if I'm going to make content with a large number of people at something like a convention, it's helpful for me to ask everyone the same question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if I have somebody, so like the example I'll use is like, hey, cold call or cold email, choose one or the other, and you get footage of 20 different people choosing one or the other. Now you can clip it up, or like I do in the off weeks when I'm not doing my interview show, I'm doing my show Death by PowerPoint, which airs every other Friday, and I advertise that by getting all the components who are going to come on. They submit one video clip to me. It's them saying, my name is blank, and I'm about to give a PowerPoint presentation I've never seen before. It's a 10-second clip from them, but I can collect those and I can compile them together, and it's like, I challenge sometimes creators to think about, again, what's the shortened version of this? How can you get to the point in faster than 3 seconds?
Yeah.
And sometimes when you go and you interview 20 brilliant people for 10 minutes a piece at a conference, you have too much footage and you don't know what to do with it. Whereas if you go around and ask everyone, hey, you got to pick one LinkedIn pet peeve. What are you sick of seeing? And you get that response from 20 different people. Now you can create a much more dynamic video. You've got all these little clips that are like different faces, one after the other, giving interesting responses. And then if you want to flesh it out, you can. But I'm like, I think the trap people run into is they think they have to make an Oscar-winning movie. And I'm like, actually, what you need is 30 good seconds.
Yeah, agree. Sometimes when I film a question that is a little longer than just yes and no or choose this and that, I'm thinking, oh, you speak too much. What will I have to cut? There is just way too long. That video of 3 minutes, nobody's going to watch. I just need one, please. So yeah, make it snappy, make it easy, because it's also a commitment from the other person. And mentally you start feeling, okay, they spend 10 minutes telling me about the thing that they do. And then you feel committed that I have to produce that video because that person spoke with me. And if it was just a yes and no or something, then say, yeah, it's like done. But you will have a compiled video of really, really fun stuff.
Yeah. So, again, I think like coming up to people and being like, hey, I'm asking everyone at this convention one question about LinkedIn. Would you be willing to answer that? That's so much easier than like, I don't know. I can't even think of an example of it, but like sometimes you put people on the spot or, I don't know, like is one of those things where like, I'm not going to shame him because I bet he probably doesn't watch the show anymore. But like, I try to be nice to all my fans. And sometimes, people send me stuff and I'm always polite and stuff. But I had a fan who was always asking me for lots of feedback, and one time he got a little snippy with me because he felt I was not thorough enough. And I had to like politely explain to him that like, hey, you're not paying me for feedback. And this is something my clients pay me for. And like, I can't like, honestly, I don't really have time to sit down and like go through strategy with you because this is a crazy week. So I'm sorry I wasn't able to give you feedback. But yeah, it was very much like imposing on me, that like I have to do all this stuff for them. And I just like, I didn't have the time or ability to do that, where I'm like, hey, I can click the like button because I want to support you. But like, you're asking too much of me.
Yeah.
And that happens sometimes. And I have to be mindful of that. When I ask for a comedy sketch, sometimes that's a bridge too far. So I give them an easy out. And I let them know, and this is something I'm doing more explicitly as the show goes on too, where I'm like, hey, I've got an idea for a sketch. I think it'd be really funny if we did something together.
That's fun.
No pressure if you don't want to do this. If you let me know if you don't want to do this, I can totally put something out there that's just me, and most people are happy to do it, but it's only because I'm like, hey, I'm going to have the idea. I'm going to send it to you. It's going to be 3 lines long. I'm going to do all the editing and like, yeah, you kind of got to take the work out of it.
Yep.
I want to ask you a little bit about a controversy that we come here often enough because I don't actually know what I think about this. So we're going to talk a little bit about social selling versus traditional cold calling, cold emailing, etc. I'm going to be honest with my audience here. There are people that I have had on this show, this very show, because they are a cold calling expert. They've come here because they want to tell everybody to stop saying that cold calling is dead. You're just not doing it good enough. You got to listen to their cold calling tips. You got to get their cold calling course. I talked to them a couple months ago, and I'm like, how's the cold calling going? And they're like, I don't cold call anymore. So how much cold outreach do you do versus how much of it is already warmed up because of all the work you're putting into LinkedIn and your brand and video content and all that stuff?
I don't do cold outreach at all.
At all.
So we're lucky enough. It's a bit of a combination of things. So I'm not here to sell anything to you, neither a social selling course nor a cold calling course, even though I've got a social selling course, but I'm not going to sell this to you.
I'll sell it to them. Give me the link. Give me.
Exactly. No, but we have a very strong marketing team. So we've got a lot of inbound. And the rest is also social selling stuff that we're doing, which is also a joint effort with marketing and sales. But all that outreach that we're doing is actually warm because either it's like all the intent that we're talking about and so on. So when you reach out to somebody, they're aware of your brand. So they already know that there is that type of a company that is called Dream Data, or they know Laura, or they know attribution and it doesn't work and they're trying to fix it or something like that. So the only outreach that I do is semi-warm. Sometimes I don't know who the person is, and it helps if I'm connected with them on LinkedIn, which means that very likely they have seen some of my content, and then it's easier to start that conversation. So it helps to warm it up with your content so they have seen it. And when you do outreach on those warm accounts, then if they're your first connections, they've seen you. And if they're marketers, it's likely that they have seen something of it anyway, because we interconnect with our audiences, with co-content and so on, with other companies and all that. So cold calling versus social selling, I think both work. This is like,
Wait, how can you say that when you just said you don't do any cold calling?
Exactly. But I've heard people who do that, and they say that if you combine the two, so if you do social selling and you call people up and they have heard about you before, or they are in your circle of where you were social selling, your first connections, or the companies that you follow, they follow, and so on, or you have been liking their content, because you can do the collaboration of the two. The way I do outreach is also that I warm them up. So I don't just jump into DMs, even of the first connections, and say, oh, what's up? So how has it been? I start liking their content. And if you as a cold caller started to do that, warmed it up in a way, and then after some time started cold calling those people, say, wait, this Chris guy who's calling me, I think I've heard it. So that is the combination that can definitely work. But I'm more in the social selling part because you have to start with it. It doesn't start with cold calling.
Do you ever sell to people that aren't first connects?
Not sell, but I do interact with their content and then try to connect with them and then start a conversation. So it is a long tail thing to happen, but yeah, I do.
Yeah. So it's interesting too how people look at me, because they're like, again, people look at the comedy and stuff and they're like, oh, well, that must be how you get meetings, is they like the comedy, so you've already gotten in. And they don't realize that a lot of the times the people I reach out to have never even seen the comedy. They don't even know I do that. And again, we're talking about creating experiences and collaborative experiences. This show is part of how I grow my audience on LinkedIn. I don't know how you do this. And, again, if the audience is interested in like how the sausage is made here behind the scenes, every time I have a guest, that is a chance to expand my audience. I send out connection requests based on who my guest is. Yeah. And so I go into LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I look, are they connected to both me and Laura? Yeah. Do they have the type of job title I typically sell into? Yep. And have they been posting on LinkedIn recently? So if somebody is clicking the like button and leaving comments on my guest's post, they might accept a connection request from me. And if they accept a connection request from me, they might accept an invite to go to an event that Laura and I are both doing together. And if they showed up to an event that Laura and I are both doing together, and I send a video out to them afterwards being like, hey, thanks for coming to the event. I wanted to ask you a question about video. Is that something your team is doing?
Yeah.
even if the answer is, hey, we're not interested, this is not something we want to do, they're probably not going to scream obscenities at me and tell me to never talk to them again and put me on their block list.
No.
That's just not how that interaction goes, you know?
Yeah.
And what people don't understand with the comedy is like, I am working very, 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 very hard so that when I come up to someone in my LinkedIn feed and I'm like, would you mind if we had a conversation about doing a workshop? Or like, could I chat with you guys about, doing an improv workshop or a sales workshop or something like that? I have bought myself 30 seconds to make my case. That's all I get. All this crazy comedy and stuff, if they're not interested, if it's not a fit, they're just going to say no.
Mhm.
But I might not get that 30 seconds of consideration unless I do something beforehand to build that trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Agree? Absolutely.
Cool. Well, let's move on to another one of my favorite topics, which I guess we've already been talking about a little bit, which is dark social. So dark social, if anybody at home needs a definition, it's basically just interactions that people have with your content that you are unaware of.
Yeah.
So an example of this is I put a comedy video out there. Somebody on their phone texts it to their wife and is like, oh, look at this thing I saw on LinkedIn. I have no way of knowing that person sent a text message with a link to my thing. I have no idea unless they tell me, but that's real.
Yeah.
And I'll have people all the time, they'll reach out to me and they'll be like, hey, we want to bring you in for a workshop, or we want to hire you as a coach or whatever. And I'm a second connect. I don't actually know them. And they tell me, I've been watching your stuff for years. I've been sharing your stuff with my team. I share it in Slack. We think your videos are funny. None of this is known to me until they actually reach out and make an inbound request. So tell me a little bit about untrackable interactions. What are the untrackable interactions that we should be more aware of because they're important? And what do companies miss when they are mapping out the journey of how buyers typically tend to find the companies that they end up working with?
Yeah. So there will always be those that are untrackable. So somebody said something to somebody, or there was somebody at an event, they spoke about something, and then they said, oh, Chris Bogue, have you heard about him? And for that part, marketers are trying to capture it with the question at their form and say, how have you heard about us from? It's very tricky. A lot of marketers love it, but it's tricky because you don't know when it happened. You don't know any context. And usually they would say, oh, internet or LinkedIn. I was like, oh, thank you very much. Or at dinner. I was like, whoa, fantastic. Which one and when? So what you have to make sure to do, some of the things that you can capture is the communities you're in. You're in plenty of those on Slack. You can set up keywords. Whenever people mention your company or you, then you're notified. That's one of the things that you can track, at least to see that notification popping up for you. Somebody is talking either about the topic, maybe the ones you're at, you could write comedy or sketch or video. And whenever somebody mentions it, then you would go and reach out to that person and have a chat about it. Not sell to them, but what is it that interests them and so on, because you're going to be kicked out of the community if you sell to them, but just talk about it. And that's one of the things. The other thing, set up the goddamn website tracking properly. I mean, there's so many companies that don't do website tracking properly. And say, oh, Google Analytics would track it all. No, it wouldn't. And it would cut it for you for 3 months, and then you know nothing. Literally everything's gone. So use the proper tracking scripts and companies that focus on that.
Like what?
Like Segment, CDP platforms, if you can afford it. Or you can use the free Dream Data if you want. It's for free, for fuck's sake. Just collect it all so you can just
gotta mention that. You gotta mention that you can get it for free. Oh my God, go get Dream Data for free, you cretins.
Exactly. So just get tracking on those. And then, well, listen up on LinkedIn, what's happening. So dark social will be there forever. For another thing that Dream Data does really well that marketers usually oversee is organic LinkedIn posts as well. So we're able to map the organic interactions and organic impressions of LinkedIn to the customer journey. This is huge. This is a part of the social, dark social piece, but it's a big part if you're active on LinkedIn, because you want to know that and you want to map it. Oh, so I paid $10,000 for Google, $2,000 for Facebook, and LinkedIn Organic has brought up many more sales qualified leads than all of the rest that I'm paying money for. You want to know that. So map it out, because you won't be able to do that otherwise.
We are coming close to the end of our time here today, but just because you have the data for this, I want to know how many times you have to interact with a person before they actually buy.
Yeah. So the average nowadays is at least 37 for B2Bs. It depends on who you're selling to and how many buyers there are usually involved in that type of a journey. But especially if you've got a product that they can try, and let's say you sell to salespeople and then you invite all the salespeople and then you sell to a sales manager and so on, that's many more than 37. So imagine the customer journey usually takes around, 192 days to close a client. So within that time, all of those touches are happening, and you've got all of your social interactions and your paid and your product and sales meetings and so on. So it's tough.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of it. However much you think you need to put yourself out there, probably need to be doing more than that. So people see me doing a lot of crazy comedy videos. It's not because I'm just dying to put the entertainment out there. It's because this works, and it's a way to get in front of potential buyers. And I had no intention of doing comedy on LinkedIn when I started here. I thought I was done. I had been on a 3-year creative dry spell.
Oh.
I didn't think I was funny enough to put comedy on the internet. I'd only done it on the stage. And I put a little bit out there, and it just took like wildfire, and all of a sudden people whose job titles were VP of sales, chief revenue officer, founder, like all these people all of a sudden started interacting and like willingly interacting with my content. So now I do it all the time. So again, this doesn't happen. This is why we have a show here in the first place. Creativity is not something that happens magically on the nights and weekends. It is a choice you have to make all the time. And that starts with just finding cool people and asking them if they want to do something that's 30 seconds long. If there's one lesson we can drive home today, it's the number one lesson in all of sales, I think, which is just ask.
Yep.
Just ask.
Gimme.
Closed mouths don't get fed. So, Laura, I could sit here and talk with you all day. Unfortunately, we both have jobs and families and obligations and whatnot. So one more time, if our audience is liking what they're hearing from you, how can they connect with you?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn and only on LinkedIn. Go connect.
Not those other bullshit websites.
Yeah, I don't have a website. No, LinkedIn, and that's
no
it.
TikTok. No TikTok.
I tried both TikTok, Instagram. I'm bad at it so far. I haven't tried enough. I should say that. That's the spirit. Huh?
Same. Well, just piss off Chris Walker again, and I'm sure it'll
on another platform.
Exactly. Yeah. So everybody, say thanks to Laura. If anybody does want to connect with me, again, I am a coach. I do workshops both on video prospecting for sales and also improv storytelling and team building. If you want to do something a little bit more fun, if you want to connect with me, you can go ahead. I'm going to take Laura's thing off here so you can
That's
see mine.
A lot of
That's how you check with me. Yeah, I know. I think I'm so smooth with the overlays and then I screw it up. But yeah, I'm Chris Bogue. Connect with me. I'm a chatty Cathy. Love talking about this stuff. Post new content all the time. Big thanks to today's sponsors, TLDV, the AI meetings assistant, Pitchfire, get paid to respond to salespeople. Thank you to both these wonderful companies for supporting independent content. 2 amazing programs. Check out TLDV and Pitchfire, and make sure you tune in next week. We'll be live again next Friday with another episode of Death by PowerPoint, this time featuring Aaron Morrissey. So thanks very much, everybody.